If you've ever tried out a solar light, you know that most of them are easy to install, but unfortunately they're not bright enough and they're pieces of junk. But the one you're looking at here is going to change everything. It is powered by the sun, but these things look good and they are super bright. They put out 200 lumens, making this the brightest solar light on the market. The light I showed you at the beginning was made by Volt Lighting, but I also purchased some other lights to see how they would compare. I'm going to show you all these lights turned on at night so you can see the difference in their brightness, but there's more than just how much light comes out of it. You also want to be concerned with build quality. These lights are not supposed to be disposable. You want to have them last more than a year, and even though this light is cheap at $8, it's built like absolute garbage. The stake is tiny, and that means it's never going to stand up straight. And if you even squeeze that metal, it's so thin, you can flatten it out completely between your fingers. Even this $25 model isn't much better. Now the stake is bigger, but that metal is still just as thin. And at $25, you're going to want this thing to last a lot more than just a season. Now here are the two top lights I reviewed. This is the one made by Volt, and this stake is meant to last. It's super thick, but it's got that flange on top. Now you can use that for hammering in the ground, but it's got a more important function. That's going to help straighten the light out as soon as you insert it into the ground. Unfortunately, this ring light also has the flange, but you can see a huge difference in the stakes. Now if your soil is really soft and you don't have any rocks, maybe that won't be a problem. These lights also attach very differently to their bases. The Volt has a threaded end, and you can securely tighten it down. The ring uses a twist lock mechanism. Now this works fine when the light is brand new, but over time, I'm not sure those little grooves are going to work out well if you've got dirt or any type of rocks in there. Now here I installed all the lights in my mulch bed to see what kind of light they put out and how bright they would actually be. Another consideration is the style of the lights, because you are going to be looking at them during the day, so you want to pick one that appeals to you. Now personally I actually like all 5 of them, but if you look at the Volt and the ring, they're definitely the more modern of the bunch. And now I just had to wait for the sun to go down to see what these lights would look like, but there was immediately a problem. You can see that one of the lights isn't even on. Now you can yell at me because I didn't read any of the directions, but solar lights are supposed to be easy. For the most part I grabbed each one and stuck them in the ground. But I later figured out that the ring wasn't working because it had a seal inside on the battery. You had to open up the housing, remove it, and then the light would work normally. Or so I thought, because in a few seconds the ring light shut completely off again, but this time it was because of a built-in feature. It's one of the 2 lights here that has a motion sensor. And I'll tell you one thing about all motion sensors on outdoor lights, every one of them is going to fail. It's just a matter of time. You've probably had a floodlight with one, and they always fail after a year or 2, and then the light is completely dead. I put landscape lighting in to light up an area, and I want it lit as long as possible, but I certainly don't want the lights blinking, dimming off and on, so in my opinion both the ring and that $25 Lowe's light were more of a pain than I really wanted to deal with. Now in the ring's case, you can purchase an extra bridge, connect an app to it. In this case, I don't really see an app adding a lot of value. I don't want the lights changing. I don't need all kinds of controls and settings. When the ring was on, it was super bright, but it still only outputs 80 lumens. The Volt puts out 200 lumens, so you're going to get a lot more light out of it, but there's also another subtle difference that you may not have noticed. The color put out by the ring's light is a little bit odd. I'd say it's kind of like a cool white, and when you look back and forth between the Volt and the ring, it's just a little bit too cool for my taste. I think the Volt light looks a little bit more natural. The other issue is with the pattern. You can see in each of these lights it's very different. The ring kind of lights up the center, and it's almost more like a beacon. The Volt is trying to light below it, and that's typically what you're going to see with landscape lights. Now the other lights that vary between $8 and $25 had some really weird patterns. And even the cheaper $8 ones were just putting out too little light. In fact, this one was only putting out just 5 lumens. For me, the Volt is going to be a better choice because it outputs more light and it's just simple to use. Now I ordered the black plastic version because it's cheaper, but you can see that even inside it's still got quality brass bits like this, along with a simple off and on switch. So here's a lighting project that could have been really difficult if I used a hardwired system, but the solar light should make it a lot easier. So all I need to do is figure out where I want to put the stakes, hammer them in the ground, and I'm ready to go. That's the beauty of this thing. There's no app, there's no programming, and these stakes are hard. When I put this pool in, there's a lot of gravel under that grass, and it is super jammed with rocks. So if you find out once you put one of these in that they're crooked, you can just remove the stake, give it kind of a tug in the direction you want, and before you know it, you've got all of these lights on the ground. But there's another benefit to this design, and that's that you can take these lights out whenever you want, but you can leave the stake in place. So if you're going to do weed whacking and mowing and you don't want to go around them, you can just unthread them quickly, and when winter comes, I can take them right out of the ground and keep those batteries and lights inside, and that's going to help them last a lot longer. And it's definitely true that altogether these lights would cost you over $300, and that's certainly not cheap, but I feel these are a much higher quality, and you can see the output looks so much better than any other solar light I'd ever used. And my other advice is if you're interested in all these lights, I'd recommend just buying one. You can see here that I stuck the original bronze one I ordered right next to my stairs, and for the first time ever I could actually see my steps at night, and all I had to do was stick this thing in the ground. And of course the other benefit of all solar lights is they're portable, so if you're renting or you're thinking about moving someday, you can pull these out of the ground and take them with you. The other surprising news about these Volts is despite being the brightest light you can get, they also had one of the best run times. These will run for about 7 hours on a full charge, but keep in mind that's at 100% brightness. To my surprise, the next morning at 5:30, these things were still outputting light. That's pretty incredible when you think that there's just a small battery inside, but it's certainly powerful enough to still keep them on through the evening. I was really pleased with these Volt lights. The end result was excellent, they were easy to do, and they're certainly not the cheapest, but I definitely think if you want to get a light that's going to last and perform, there's certainly one to consider. I also like the fact you can just buy one and see how it works for you. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and be sure to subscribe to my channel if you're not already for more videos coming up.